What if I told you that the Pirates of the Caribbean were not just a Disney franchise, but a harsh reality of the 17th and 18th centuries? The late 1600s marked the dawn of what we now know as the Golden Age of piracy. This period, far from the romanticized tales of swashbuckling anti-heroes, was a time of danger, treachery, and lawlessness. It was an era when the high seas became the stage for a dramatic clash of power, greed, and survival. So, what led to this rise of piracy? Let's rewind a bit. The late 17th century was a tumultuous time. The War of Spanish Succession had just ended, leaving a glut of unemployed seamen in its wake. These men, skilled in naval warfare yet without a job, found themselves stranded in a world that had no use for their talents. But the sea, vast and unforgiving, beckoned. It promised wealth beyond imagination, freedom from the shackles of society, and a life untethered by the rules of the land. For many, the lure was irresistible. This was the life of a pirate, dangerous, unpredictable, and in many ways, liberating. Among these men was William Kidd, a name that would soon become synonymous with piracy. Kidd began his seafaring career as a privateer, sanctioned by the government to attack and loot enemy ships. But as the lines between privateering and piracy blurred, Kidd found himself drawn into the world of outlaws. His story, like those of many others, was a testament to the thin line between legality and criminality in these turbulent times. The socio-political climate of the time was a fertile ground for piracy to thrive. The end of the war, the abundance of experienced seamen, and the tantalizing promise of untold wealth and freedom all converged to create the perfect storm. As the 17th century drew to a close, the stage was set for an era of lawlessness and rebellion on the high seas. The golden age of piracy was just over the horizon, ready to unfurl its sails and embark on its infamous journey into the annals of history. Imagine a world where pirates ruled the seas, striking fear into the hearts of sailors and governments alike. Welcome to the peak of the golden age of piracy, a decade that spanned from 1716 to 1726. This was a time when the most infamous pirates, the likes of Blackbeard and Calico, carved their names into the annals of history. Their notorious deeds, from audacious robberies to brazen acts of defiance, not only made them legends of the sea, but also had a profound impact on trade and politics. Blackbeard, or Edward Teach if you prefer, was a figure who seemed to be ripped straight from a storybook. His fearsome appearance, complete with a thick beard and slow match fuses burning in his hat, was enough to make even the bravest sailor's blood run cold. He commanded a fleet of ships, and his reign of terror on the Atlantic disrupted trade routes, causing economic distress for the colonies. Then there was Calico, a pirate known as much for his flamboyant attire as his ruthless piracy. He was a master of the surprise attack, his swift and audacious raids leaving his victims little chance of retaliation. Jack's audacity extended to his personal life as well, with his crew including the notorious female pirates Bonny and Mary Red. These pirates and their brethren found safe haven in places like Nassau and Port Royal, towns where the pirate's life was not just tolerated, but celebrated. These havens were bustling with activity, filled with sailors, merchants, and yes, pirates, all living in a kind of chaotic harmony. And let's not forget the pirate code of conduct. Despite their lawless reputation, pirates had a strict code that governed their life at sea. From rules about division of loot to punishments for breaking their laws, this code was a crucial part of pirate society. At its height, the golden age of piracy was a tumultuous period of adventure and anarchy, where the line between pirate and privateer was blurred. This was a world where the Jolly Roger was more than just a flag. It was a symbol of defiance, freedom, and the relentless spirit of those who dared to challenge the might of nations. But how did this era of rampant piracy, this rule of the outlaws on the oceans, come to an end? As the clock ticked towards 1726, the golden age of piracy began to wane. The high tide of lawlessness on the high seas started to recede, making way for a new era. The decline of this age was not an overnight event. Rather, it was a gradual process influenced by a multitude of factors. One of the most significant was the increased presence of naval patrols. Governments, tired of the sea rogues disrupting trade and terrorizing the oceans, beefed up their naval forces. The once lawless seas were now patrolled by formidable warships, ready to engage any pirate vessel that dared to cross their path. The once fearless pirates were no longer able to roam the seas with impunity. Another contributing factor was the end of legal privateering. During times of war, governments had often turned a blind eye to piracy, even encouraging it through the issuance of privateering licenses. But as peace took hold, the need for these privateers diminished. Without the protection of these licenses, the pirates were left exposed and vulnerable. The colonial governments also began to take a harder stance against piracy. Trials and executions of pirates became more common. The infamous Blackbeard, terror of the seas, met his end in a ferocious battle with the Royal Navy, while the notorious Bonny was captured and tried. The spectacle of these trials and the subsequent executions sent a chilling message to those who dared to defy the law. These events had a profound impact on piracy. Many pirates, fearing the gallows, chose to abandon their lawless life. The lure of easy plunder was no longer enough to outweigh the risk of capture and execution. The sun began to set on the golden age of piracy as the world moved towards a new chapter in maritime history. While the golden age of piracy had ended, its legacy continues to inspire and intrigue us even today. This was an era that left an indelible mark on our collective consciousness, casting a long shadow over subsequent centuries. It's no surprise that it has been so deeply embedded in our popular culture, from swashbuckling novels to blockbuster films. The image of the pirate has been romanticized, transformed from ruthless outlaw to roguish anti-hero. We revel in tales of their daring adventures, their buried treasures, their infamous deeds. But we must remember the reality was often far more brutal and less glamorous. Yet this contrast between myth and reality is part of what makes the golden age of piracy so fascinating. It's a testament to the power of storytelling, of how we can take a dark chapter in our history and turn it into a source of endless fascination and inspiration. The golden age of piracy, a time of lawlessness and rebellion, of legendary figures and infamous deeds, continues to captivate our imagination, reminding us of a tumultuous chapter in our history.